On July 6, 2026, Angelica Broofphy dropped her daughter off, went to a casino, drove nearly an hour into the mountains, and then disappeared. Her car was eventually found at a remote state park, but Angelica wasn't inside. Her phone wasn't with her either. And what investigators discovered inside that vehicle raises a question that could change everything about this case. Did Angelica intend to disappear, or did someone make sure she couldn't come back? This is the disappearance of 44-year-old Angelica Broofphy, an emergency room nurse, mother of two, and marathon runner from Oceanside, California. And the timeline gets stranger the closer you look. Angelica's last known day began normally enough. She dropped her daughter off at around 9:30 in the morning, but instead of immediately returning home, Angelica went somewhere completely different. A casino. Surveillance reportedly captured her leaving the casino around 3:30 in the afternoon. That creates our first major question. Why was she there for hours? Was she simply spending time at the casino? Was she meeting someone? Was there something that happened there that investigators still haven't revealed? We don't know, but we do know where she went next. Angelica drove toward Palomar Mountain State Park, and according to the available timeline, her vehicle arrived there around 4:20 p.m. That's only about 50 minutes after she was seen leaving the casino. So investigators believe she likely drove directly there. And here's where the timeline becomes difficult to explain. Angelica was supposed to work that evening. She was an emergency room nurse, and her shift was expected to begin around 7 p.m. The drive from the park back toward her workplace would take roughly an hour. That means Angelica had very little time. So why drive into a mountainous area shortly before a work shift? And why arrange for someone else to take care of her daughter? That detail might seem ordinary on its own, but when you place it beside everything else that happened that day, it becomes much harder to ignore.
She is a 44-year-old female. She lives in Oceanside, California. She's an emergency room nurse at Kaiser in San Marcos, California. She's a mother of two, and she enjoys hiking, and she runs marathons. Now, on July 6, 2026, at 9:30 a.m., Angelica dropped her daughter off in Oceanside. So, if you look at the map right here, Angelica Broofphy's home is right here in that precise location. In fact, if you go down to Street View, the vehicle that they eventually end up finding is right here in the driveway. So this is the same vehicle. This is Street View from 2022. So they live in Oceanside, so the camp that she dropped her daughter off is likely, somewhere in this area. And then she took off. And she did arrange for somebody else to drive her daughter home that she dropped off, which I think is sort of, a hint in the case here. At 3:30 p.m., she's seen leaving Hera Resort in Southern California, which is a casino. All right, so let's show where that is. That is right here. Here is that casino. You can see it. So she left there at 3:30, and I think obviously it's surveillance footage. Now, what she was doing in the casino, was she meeting somebody there? Was she gambling all day? 9:30, and then you have her leaving there at 3:30. So 9:30 she dropped her daughter off, and then leaving there at 3:30 is a lot of time in between. But then after she was at the casino, she ends up driving to Palomar Mountain State Park. And there's a parking slip that shows that she arrived there right around 4:20, which actually does make some sense. Now here's a map of how you might drive there. So here is where the casino is, and then you drive up on Valley Center Road, it looks like, and then South Grade Road, and then this crazy winding road over here, and then you end up right here in the parking area where her vehicle was found. Now if you look at this, it says that would take about 44 minutes. So if she left there at around 3:30, the casino, that would put her there at 4:15 or so, and they have her there at 4:20. So it's very reasonable that she didn't stop or do anything. She drove straight to this park from the casino. And that's the likely route she took. Now, there's other routes. You can go up here and wind around and drive around and come over there, which are about the same, so she could have gone that route as well. And then at 7 p.m., she failed to show up to work at the hospital she works at. So if we pan out, and she works right here, and let's take a look at that map. And from the park, which is right up in this area, to the hospital, it would be an hour and 10-minute drive. So she's really kind of cutting it close to go hiking, right? So she gets up there at 4:20, and then she needs to go to her overnight shift at the Kaiser in San Marcos at 7 p.m. And then, but she doesn't show up for work there. And then at 9:30 p.m., her husband reported her missing. All right. Now on July 7th, which is the next day, so all of this took place on July 6th. I should have mentioned that at the beginning, but this was July 6th, 2026. Now on July 7th, that's when the detectives began investigation. Then on July 8th, police tried pinging her cell phone, but it was either turned off or the battery was dead. So at this point, they don't know where she is. So even, on the 8th, they didn't know where she had been, all right? And then on the 9th, Angelica's Hyundai Kona, and I think it's a 2020, was located at Palomar Mountain State Park. Inside the car, they found cash, her passport, her purse, wallet, and driver's license. So I would imagine inside of her purse is the passport, the wallet, and the wallet probably had the driver's license inside of it. And then more alarming would be that her cell phone was in the car. This is the same cell phone that was turned off, that law enforcement wasn't able to ping. Now, I sort of wonder where the cell phone was when it was turned off. I would think that information might be out there. When was the last time it quit pinging? Was it right when she got to the park, or was it prior to going there? Because if it pinged when she got to the park, I think they would have been able to locate her, right? So it must have been turned off prior to going there, so they didn't know where she was. And then after they found her vehicle here, and her vehicle was literally parked in exactly where I have this pin. We go down the street view here and back up a little bit. Yeah, I think that's a good angle there. Then we take a look at this shot right here of her vehicle backed in. You see this portion right there? You look at that? That's right here. So if I could zoom in, probably when I zoomed in right there, it went past it, but you can see that this little ground repair there is exactly the same as that one. And so that means that she was parked right inside that stall right there. It's interesting that she backed the car in, I didn't really notice that till just now. Why would she back her car in a place like that? Especially, let's say she went there to do self-harm. It's a little interesting that the car is backed in. But either way, it's like, why wouldn't you just pull in and get out of your car? There's nobody there. It's easy to back up. So, for whatever reason, maybe that's what she does. She normally backs into parking spots. Maybe she sat there for a while and wanted to look out and see, anybody that may have came into the parking area when she was there. It's hard to say. But a search was conducted, and the divers, they went into the pond. So there's actually a pond right over here. Let me show you. Right there. See that? And divers were in that pond. They did not find her. They even brought out scent and cadaver dogs, drones, horseback, helicopter. I don't know if they used night vision, if they went out there at night. And they've done searching by foot. And they also are wanting people that were riding motorcycles or a vehicle that have cameras on them to see if they have footage of her car driving. You know, it's sort of interesting. I mean, they know that she drove there. I think what they're looking for is to see if anybody was following her. You know, had she won money that day? I think it's really odd, though, that she went on a hike with such a tight timeline to be able to get back to work. And then also, why would you go on a hike for an extended period of time? I don't know how long she was going to walk for, but just before a night shift, that seems like that would be unusual. Maybe it's not for her, though. Now, the NBC San Diego.com website said, at a press conference, Oceanside Police Chief Torino, I think it's Valdovinos, stated, at this time, we have no evidence of foul play. However, we are treating this case as an open investigation until Miss Broofphy is located. And then the police department captain, Nick Nunez, said there's no indication of foul play as well in Broofy's disappearance. The department said they are in contact with Brent Broofphy, her husband, and do not have any indication that he had anything to do with his wife's disappearance. Captain Nunez added that detectives are reaching out to the security detail at Harrah's Casino to see if anyone was with Broofphy or if anyone appeared to be following her. He did not know whether she'd won a large sum of money at the casino, but said detectives are working to get to the bottom of it. Yeah, I mean, it seems like that would be something very easy for them to monitor. I mean, there's cameras all over the place at casinos. They should have been able to get there and have a really tight timeline. What was she doing at the casino? Was she even playing video games at all? There's hotels there. Maybe she was meeting somebody there. I'm not trying to suggest anything there, but it's just, that's a possibility. We don't know what she was doing at the casino. It could have been a last hurrah, like, hey, I'm just going to try to win something. And I mean, who knows? It just seems really strange that she went to a casino, she had somebody else pick up her kid, and then she went to a park to go hiking with very little time to spare. It seems like she planned on not coming back between 9:30 and, let's say, 6 in the evening, and that's why she had somebody else pick up her, or take her child back home. And then there was also another article out there, the Sun.com, and there's a friend named Ashley Seitz, I think it is, and she's 38 years old, is a co-worker of Angelica, and has been friends with her for the last 3 years, or they've been co-workers for the last 3 years, and they were very good friends. And they have a group of 5 friends, and they call themselves the Taco Bellos because they would eat at Taco Bell during their night shift on occasion. All right. And then Seitz stated her last message in that little friend group chat, the 5 friends there, was, she was thanking them for being such great friends. And then, but she does say, Seitz says, that that's something we did all the time. And then it said, we were always expressing appreciation for one another, so it wasn't unusual. We said those kinds of things all the time. Looking back now, though, it almost feels cryptic. At the time, it wasn't, but it does now. And the thing is, then she gave an example of how, she was having problems with something, and they all helped her out, and then she said thank you to all of them. So there was something that led up to thanking. Now, usually that's what it is when, let's say friends really help you out with something, you say thank you. But in this case, it doesn't seem like there was something leading up to that. So was this thank you a goodbye? Leave a comment in the comments section and let me know what you think regarding that. Now, earlier I mentioned how there was a passport in the vehicle. Her husband says that she always had the passport with her. For me and probably most of us, it's unusual to be carrying around your passport all the time. I guess maybe if you're a truck driver or something like that, you might have that. But I think normal people kind of store their passport somewhere. Now, when I look at this case, the things that I look at are this: that she arranged for her daughter to be picked up. To me, that sort of signals that she knew that she wasn't going to be coming back there. And then she messages the friends about thanking them for being such good friends, kind of out of the blue, not really for a particular thing that just happened that they helped her with. And then she went to the casino, apparently alone. She turned off her phone. Usually people do that when they don't want to be tracked. And they did have a difficult time finding where she was because her phone was turned off. So that portion seems intentional, that she didn't want to be tracked to the park. And then she went hiking alone, which seems unusual. Maybe she did that all the time. But she went hiking alone, but what makes that a little more strange, or a lot more in my opinion, is that she didn't take her phone with her when she went on that hike. You know, women hiking alone, you would definitely want something to be able to call somebody in case something happened. I mean, hell, even a male would want to have their phone with them, right? And we also have that law enforcement says there's no indication of foul play. All right, so let's take a look at what it kind of looked like out there. So this is where she parked, and then there's these parking trails. Now, there was people that went out there with 360-degree cameras, and you can see the dots sort of show up. It takes a minute or so, but here's one of them. Like, this is what it looks like out there when you're walking. Now, I think eventually you cut back up and go into the woods, and it's very steep, so it's also possible she got hurt out there and something happened to her, and you know, they just haven't been able to find her yet. But I think that's less likely because it doesn't really add up with the other information. There's too many things that point to her wanting to be there by herself and not tracked to that location, which is generally pretty ominous. All right, now let's see if we can find a 360-degree shot out in the woods somewhere. I know that they exist in here. Let me see. Yeah, maybe up in there. This will kind of give us a look of what it looks like. So it's really, I mean, here, there's people even hiking in this image here. So it looks like that, but I think if you wander off from the path, you can go a long ways away. Now, this is a 5-mile grid right there. And so, you know, she runs marathons, so she could be even outside of that. I mean, this park goes on for a long ways. So she could have walked way outside that grid, and, you know, she is a nurse, so she has access to medications that may do something to herself in the event of self-harm. You know, we don't know, but everything to me points to that. Now, I guess if somebody kidnapped her and was in the car and laid down, they might have instructed her to do all these different things. You know, turn off your phone, we're going up to here, and so I guess that angle's still out there, but I guess then you have to say, well, why did you, you know, try to get somebody else to drive your kid home? Why did you go to the casino prior to that? You know, there's just other things, you know, that sort of just point to the more likely fact that she went there on her own and that she might have taken her own life somewhere out there in the woods. We've seen these stories before. We've covered them. There was that one sort of a few months back with that girl at her house, and you just see her walking out of the home, and then they find her in a field behind her home. You know, there's even surveillance footage that had the wrong person in it that they thought was her. But that is where I am leaning with this case. Now, I hope that she is out there and got lost and wandering around, something like that, or met up with somebody else and took off. That would be a much better outcome. But the information so far doesn't seem to appear to point in that direction. All right, well, that's going to do it, you guys.